My name's Neil. I'm originally from Vancouver, Canada. I'm 43. I moved here during COVID, so it was September 2020. It was an interesting time, I think, for me to move. That was 3 years ago now. So I'd say I've always been quite addicted to activity. I go to the gym, I try and go at least 4 or 5 times a week. I play tennis a couple times a week. Since I was a teenager, I've loved snowboarding. It's my biggest passion. A little tough to do in Singapore, but I wakeboarded back in Canada, so I wakeboard, I wake surf. And yeah, I would just say just on the whole, I was a very active person. Unfortunately, from a medication that I was on, it was an immunosuppressant. So I ended up getting an infection in my left leg. It all happened so quickly. Truthfully, I didn't actually have time to really realize what was going on, particularly the severity of it. I'd gone to the beach that day with my wife and some friends, went into the water, and then in the evening I kind of started feeling like I've had a bit of a fever. That was on a Friday. The fever kind of progressed, and then by the time Sunday hit, I had a fever of 41.6, so pretty high, to which my very sensible wife forced me to go to the hospital, to A&E. I went to the hospital at A&E, and what I didn't realize was I was actually in septic shock. And then from there, it was kind of a blur, honestly. It happened so quickly that I guess I passed out. And then when I woke up, it was the following day, and I had a tube in my leg. I saw a black spot, and I didn't really realize kind of what was going on. And truthfully, I was probably on a lot of medication. I was quite out of it. And then I passed out again, and then I was in a coma for 10 days. So again, during that coma, I didn't know what was going on and kind of the severity of my illness and what had been happening. I did actually wake up a couple times during my coma, which it's quite a freaky experience, being tied to the bed and not knowing why I was there. And then when I woke up, I looked at my legs that were both fully bandaged, and I could see my feet, and they were black, which is obviously not a good sign. So when the doctors, it was probably about 2 or 3 days after I woke up from the coma, came in to explain to me what had happened, they really kind of stressed to me how close I was to dying. My kidneys had shut down, my heart pretty much shut down, my liver, my lungs a bit, everything had pretty much shut down. And the medication that they use, which focuses the blood flow and the thickness of your blood to your torso and to obviously your vital organs, means that your feet, which are the furthest thing from your body, which have small blood vessels, don't get enough blood circulation. So the drug that saved my life was also the one that cost me my feet. It's obviously a very big win that I obviously got to stay alive, but I lost my feet, right? So at first I was quite in shock, and I'd say it probably took a couple days to really sink in. And then once it sunk in, I said to the doctors when they told me I was losing my feet, the first thing I said is, "Can I still snowboard?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, can I still play tennis?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, can I still work out?" And I just started going through, all I could think about was every activity that I love doing, would I still be able to do it, right? And they said, "Look, Neil, we've never treated someone that was snowboarding afterwards or did the stuff that you want to do afterwards, but we have no doubt that you'll be able to do them. It's just going to take time." In my head, I kind of use that as a drive, as a motivation, that the whole time in the hospital, all I just kept thinking about was you're going to do that stuff again. It's going to suck between now and then. And I remember just thinking, I just want to fast forward to 2 years from now or 1 year from now, whenever it is that I am on my prosthetics, I just want to fast forward to there. I don't want to do the in-between bit, right, which is the hard bit. But that really kind of helped me. And then the other one being when I spoke to Tyler, who was the Canadian Paralympic snowboarder. Speaking to him was incredibly impactful, because there was a guy, he lost his legs from a skydiving accident, but he was a guy that was bilateral and surfed, snowboarded, mountain biked, did all the sports I like to, or at least try to do. And he, not only was he just doing them, he was smashing it, right? He was winning gold medals. He was charging it on his mountain bike. He was carving on a surfboard. It's one thing to just do a sport, and it's another thing to actually charge it, right? And I just thought it was so inspirational talking to him, and he was very honest. He was very raw about not only the struggle that you go through physically, mentally, of what his journey was like, and I think it was really helpful to kind of hear the dark side of things. But hearing that he said, "Look, but that's you loving your sports and loving activity and all kind of stuff is what's going to help you more than anything, right? Because you're going to have that desire to get back to doing that stuff again, right? I was in the hospital for 2 months, I got this leg amputated, then I got out. I was out for about a month, and then I went back and I had this one amputated. And actually, surprisingly, after I had my second leg amputated, I mentally felt much better because I had no sense of what if, right? What if I can save my right foot? What if I can save my right leg? And having just one amputation obviously is probably easier than two. It just gave me a sense of like, okay, you don't have any what ifs anymore. Now all you have is one focus. There is no dwelling on the past of I may be able to save a leg, so maybe I'll be able to, keep my foot. You've got one focus now, right? Is walk. Get up, get on your feet, like start walking. Everything else doesn't matter. That's your one drive, that's your one goal, right? And yeah, it was a struggle first getting in the hospital and living in a wheelchair and having to adapt. Like, that word adapt is so pertinent I think in a new amputee's life when it comes to adapting mentally, adapting physically. But it truly is that, and the faster you can do that, or I should say the more effectively you can do that and have the tools and have the mindset to really face the challenges as small as taking a shower, right? Like the smallest task is a big challenge, but I try and think every day, if I do get frustrated, like this is just temporary, or when I'm in the gym and I don't want to train or I'm feeling tired or whatever else, it's like, well, the harder you train, the quicker you'll be out of your chair, right? So I kind of use that as motivation. I've just been incredibly grateful, incredibly lucky to have an amazing support team since the second I went into the hospital, right? The doctors at Gleneagles, my infectious disease doctor, pretty much saved my life when I was in septic shock. The ICU nurses who were incredible, the nurses even in the ward. But most importantly, like I see how brave and how strong she's been through this, that I want to be the same for her, right? The support that I got globally, one of my best friends set up a GoFundMe page. I had 830 subscribers and they raised over 133,000 pounds. And that was people from around the world, right? I had friends from elementary school, friends from high school, friends from Hong Kong, people from the UK, people I didn't even know, right? People saying, look, you don't even know me, but I'm a friend of so-and-so who knows you, or I heard your story. And I just had so many people giving me like good vibes and global love. The number one person is my wife, right? We got married in July 23rd, and this happened to me September 3rd. So we were married just over a month and a half before this happened, right? And I joke about it, but she had the hard part, right? She had to watch a heart monitor, and she was there when I was, a hairline away from dying, whereas for me, I was sleeping. Coming out of that, she's become a full-time caregiver, right? And the support she's given me mentally, physically, like she's just a rock. She's stronger than I am. I want to push hard to make them proud. I want to push, I want to recover as quickly as I can for them as well, right? They've been there for me, and they helped me.
My name's Sarah. I'm originally from the UK. Yeah, I think I met Neil about almost 3 years ago. After 1 year, we were engaged, and after 2 years, married. One of the things that first struck me about Neil was his larger-than-life personality, and I was a positive person. But then meeting Neil, he just oozes positivity and determination, and obviously has a very contagious laugh. So as soon as we met each other, we were just like instantly connected. And
you didn't say funny.
I'm funny. See, it was not how we imagined spending the first year of marriage. We went from the highest high to suddenly hitting sort of rock bottom, and like when Neil was first in hospital, we weren't sure if he was even going to make it. It was obviously a big change when we went from the hospital back home. I felt prepared for it, and then actually when he got home, there were a lot of things that we sort of had to learn and muddle our way through. I was like quite stressed and anxious when it all happened, so I did go and see a psychiatrist to start off with to help with sleep, and because I wasn't really eating very much, and so that helped with that side of things. But yeah, just leaning on family and friends to support us, to support me so that I could support him was probably the most valuable thing, to be honest. And when he was in hospital, I actually developed really bad lower back and hip pain, which I think was probably a build-up of stress and everything else. So then I started going to yoga regularly, and then I think that helped not only physically but also mentally as well. And one of my passions is wakeboarding, so that is like therapy for me. I just get onto the water and it just helps to clear my head, and then it helps me to be my best version so that I can
Yeah,
help
I think
you.
just the other bit to jump in with that as well is I think that was really helpful for us as a couple because it's something that Sarah loves, that's her passion, and I didn't want her to stop doing that to have to look after me, right? And obviously in the beginning, you know, she obviously wanted to make sure that I was safe at home and everything like that, but it was really important to me and to us and obviously to her, like that she kept doing it, right? Because it is something that's really important to her. Just because I got sick, obviously, yeah, I needed support and help at the time, but as time goes on, the more she should get to do her passions, right? And I think that was like helpful for both of us. My rehab doctor actually, she put me in touch with Lennis, and Lennis came to my house, and at that point, you know, I'd been wheelchair bound, hadn't really done any mobility. And she came over, and in the first session, she had me like standing on my knees. She had me do it on the bed because obviously it's safer. Given the height of my bed, it was pretty much my old height. So it's the first time I was 6'4" in about 4 months. So I remember just her teaching me kind of how to do it and just being like, wow, like this is remarkable. You know, it's the little things that become quite big when you're in this situation. And, you know, just kind of having that was huge. She taught me how to get in and out of a car, so that gave me that gave me massive freedom and independence, right? Because before that, I was having to take wheelchair taxis. And wheelchair taxis in Singapore, they charge you $60 flat fee, no matter how short or long you're going distance-wise. But she taught me how to get in a car. And then once I knew that, then I could get in a Grab and go anywhere. That gave me so much more freedom, right? We'd go to more places and just, again, gives me more of my life back. And that was literally in her first session. I was standing, I could get in a car, and that was in a 1 hour session, right? So through physiotherapy, I know how impactful this is for me, having Lennis and Deanna and having the staff here coach me through how to have mobility, how to have strength, how to walk, all the stuff that I do in here. Yes, I've always loved going to the gym, so this is like, it's another piece of my old life that I get back. And not only that, but it's like, these people are literally teaching me how to walk, right? It's one thing to learn how to deadlift, but it's another thing to learn proper functional fitness for an amputee, right? How to walk, get the mobility back in my hips and everything else, what I need to do being in a wheelchair, what I need to do when I come out of the wheelchair. The physio's been incredible, right? And if I could, I would come every day because it's, stuff I don't know and I don't think about, right? So I can't imagine if I hadn't come, how much longer my recovery would have been. 3 months down the road, I now have my first prosthetic, and she's teaching me how to walk on it, right? So it's gone from literally like a baby toddler who's crawling to now kind of starting to walk, right? And I think it's cool to be doing that journey with her as well, right? She's seen the progression in me, and I want to make my progression a reflection of how good I think she is, right? So it makes me train harder. I think I've been quite lucky in that I've been able to, for the most part, stay on a positive track. When I was in the hospital, it was, you're in this kind of bubble. You're lying in bed all day. You've got a team of nurses looking after you and everything else. And I remember when I first got out of the hospital, I struggled really badly, really, really badly. Because you're now in the real world, right? You're no longer in the hospital. I now, unfortunately, have to ask my wife to do everything for me. You can choose to be as adaptive you want, but I'm not just gonna lie in bed. So I really struggled when I first got out of the hospital. And then when I was in the hospital and I found out that they couldn't save my right foot, which meant obviously my leg was gonna have to be amputated, that broke me. Like, I've never gone to that dark of a mental place. Like, even throughout the first 2 months in the hospital, like, I'd never been that challenged mentally. I was angry, sad, upset, all this kind of grieving, all this stuff all at once, and I didn't know kind of how to deal with it. When I got the leg cut off, for some reason, it actually felt like a relief. And it helps from a mental perspective to just have this goal of walking, right? You've got this one goal. And since then, of course, I get wobbles here and there. Like, if I'm somewhere that like is tough to access, or I want to do something as simple as get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I can't do that, right? Whenever I get upset and say, look, like, you've lost your feet. Of course, there's stuff to deal with, but I think a lot of ways I have to focus on like the positives. The amount of people I've met through this, amputees, a lot of people have it a lot harder than me, and that's, I think, one of the best things to come out of this situation is how much more aware you become of amputees, right? Or just people with disabilities, like, period. I'm gonna be upset from time to time. That's natural, that's human, but I think as I said, I think I've been quite lucky to sort of stay on the positive side of things for the most part. I mean, a lot of it, I found them through Lennis. She obviously introduced me to the wheelchair rugby, which we went and played, me and my wife went and played, which was really fun. And that was, obviously there's quite a few people that come out for that, and it was just really interesting, just meeting different people, and it becomes kind of like a network, and kind of through, like, Tyler speaking with him in Canada, like, I just reached out to him, right? And I think, people that are in this situation, and because we're more aware of how hard it is to be in this situation, you're that much more willing to help people or reciprocate if someone reaches out to you or whatever else. And like, moving forward, like, I want to help amputees as much as possible because I know how much they've helped me, right? And same thing with, with Lennis and the physio. If I ever came across anyone and said, look, like, I'm going to try and do this on my own, I said, no, you got to go to physio. I think the biggest thing is, like, don't suffer in silence, obviously. Like, it's incredibly difficult, right? And whether it's 6 months ago or 6 years, like, the mental struggle is kind of always there. That, like, speak to someone, right? I was lucky to have Tyler or, my wife, and obviously, like, I had a really good support system around me, but you've got to get your mind right in order to get the physical bit right, and the mind's going to drive the body. So if I'm positive in my mind, it's going to help my recovery. Find someone, reach out to someone, whatever else that you can, that, like, will inspire you, right? That will kind of help motivate you, right? And find a something, right? Whether it doesn't have to be a physical thing. It could be like, I want to write a book, or I want to be a public speaker. It doesn't matter what it is, but, like, have a something, right? Have a goal to sort of work towards, because if you don't, it's just very easy to very aimlessly kind of get better. What can you strive for, right? And unfortunately, this illness took my feet, but I won't let it take my life. There's still other things I want to achieve. That's me. But for somebody else, they may want to have a family, right? They may want to have kids, or they may want to get married, or whatever else. Doesn't matter what the thing is, but don't let your physical situation hold you back from things you want to achieve. And I mean, the thing I really like about coming here is that the trainers or my physiotherapists, it's probably both actually, are they're experienced in helping amputees, right? And so their training or their exercises or their knowledge and everything else is very obviously pertinent to the training that we have. Right? Okay, how are we going to get your glutes stronger so that you can walk, right? Or what is your hip mobility like so that you can take a step, and things like that. That's huge. I think the other thing is obviously is the community that I've met is all through Thrive, right? So, like, the wheelchair rugby, Jason, who's the guy that I met, who got me into prosthesis, that was through Lennis as well. It's just that network, right? And the network is so helpful and powerful that, Thrive is obviously a strong conduit into that, right? So you could probably go to any physiotherapy clinic and they'll probably teach you how to stretch or kind of do that kind of stuff, but for me, it gives me a lot of confidence having a trainer or having trainers that specialize in this, right? So it's not only the physical guidance, but stuff outside of that too, of just kind of adapting to this new lifestyle. They just have, much more knowledge and experience in it that they can help guide you.
Yeah, well, we can handle this, so I think we can handle anything now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing is like, we've gone through what a lot of couples go through throughout a lifetime of a marriage, particularly with, like, or never go through, but even, like, especially the hospitalization stuff, right? And that, Sarah reminding me to take my pills, and, like, I've literally turned into, like, a geriatric person, but
I've
yeah,
become
like,
his PA.
yeah, but things like that you don't usually go through until you're old or older, right? As much as it's obviously been a horrific thing to go through, again, like, what is the power of your perception, right? The positive is nothing's off the table now, or, like, not that it obviously was before we got married, but it's like our relationship has gone very quickly, and this is just another testament to our compatibility and love for each other, because it's like, even throwing something as hard as this at us, we beat it. Yeah.